And yeah, being a mother is the best situation, the best journey that I have been on in my life. And it's one that you can't prepare for as much. And it's not just being a mother, but it's being a parent. I know you have 3 kids also, right? So the parenting journey, whatever role you play in that, it is a wild, wild ride, and it's amazing.
I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that will reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. Today, we get to speak with Hallie Avolio. As a wife of almost 20 years, mom of 3 kids, and former B2B sales executive, she intimately knows the struggle of feeling stuck and giving her love to everyone else but herself. She loves to help women get unstuck, find self-love, manifest their purpose, and live this life to the fullest. Now, she's the founder and president of Sassy Healthy Fit, an organization created with the mission to teach as many humans as possible to love themselves unconditionally and create a F-yes life, and to make this world a brighter place through each of our unique gifts. So let's dig into this episode as we talk with Hallie Avolio. Hallie, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks, Junaid. I'm really excited to be here, and I think it's actually really cool that we color coordinated today as well. I know some of the people are getting the video on this, so we didn't plan it, but I think we're on the same wavelength. So that seems like a really good start to this conversation.
No, absolutely. This is my favorite color. That's why I've got my, home studio mastery on it.
I like it. Perfect.
It's beautiful. I mean, I've tried black and I've tried the red, and it was like too bright or too dark. And I was like, I want to make sure that I highlight the backdrop and I highlight what the colors are like. So now I have multiple of the same shirts, and this is all I wear.
It's easy that way. It's like, what do they call that? A capsule wardrobe. Have you heard that term before?
I have not heard of that term, but I do know both Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and, a lot of these guys.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was known for his black turtlenecks, right?
The black turtlenecks, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, if they're doing it and they're geniuses, what's stopping me to do it, Make sure get on that same wavelength. So, Hallie, tell us a little bit about yourself. I like to ask this question about your journey that no one's heard of before.
Cool.
So let's jump in it.
Well, I was thinking about this. See, I did my homework, Junaid, and I've been, of course, listening to the show quite a bit lately. So I had a heads up to what you were going to be asking me. So I was thinking, what is my story I haven't told before? Because I'm always telling my story to a lot of people. But here's one that might be unique to your show, which is I think I have always been an entrepreneur at heart, because when I was a little girl and, I grew up in the 80s, my parents both worked full time. My younger brother is quite a bit younger than me, so we would have, somebody to kind of take care of him as he was a baby. But I would definitely consider myself more of a latchkey kid, and I had to be independent and take care of myself. And, I walked to school, I'd walk home from school, my parents wouldn't be home. I would have a lot of responsibilities around the house, but I would have to entertain myself. And of course, in the 80s, we didn't have cell phones, or we started to have video games, but that wasn't like a primary source of entertainment. So one of my favorite things to do, and I love, love, love to read. I've always been an avid reader. But one of my favorite things to do would be to take all my old books that I had, and I would sell them. So I would sit outside. We had this brick mailbox, this big brick mailbox, and I would somehow climb up it and position myself on top of it. And I had this box, like a cardboard box full of my old books. And I would just yell in my neighborhood, books for sale, books for sale. And the funny thing is, I lived on the top of a hill, which was not easily accessible, and I lived on a cul-de-sac. So it wasn't like there was a huge audience to really be answering my call of books for sale, but I did it a lot of times, and I think I sold them for $0.25 each, and it was great. It definitely entertained me, and I always loved the transaction of, offering somebody a book that I had read and being able to speak to them about it, receiving money for it, the whole thing. I loved it.
That's so funny. So you're in a cul-de-sac, you're selling on top of lungs, books for sale, and people probably heard, and you're also on the top of a hill, so they would hear, and then they would come up like, hey, and that's, selling a book is one thing, but then having read that book and be able to tell a person what you liked about it, and then, basically getting them hyped up about it, I think that's pretty cool too.
Well, I think I'm a natural born salesperson, so... And I love, my degree is in communication studies.
Okay.
I love communicating with people. I think that's why I'm so drawn to the work that I do now, but also being on social media and connecting with people via social media, because you can just meet with people all over the world, all walks of life, and you have these really fascinating conversations that you wouldn't necessarily have if you just kind of stay close to home in your own neighborhood.
No, you're so right. And for the past 2 years, I can't believe it's March 28th, which means that it's been exactly 2 years since we've been working from home. We've been spending a lot of time with ourselves or on Zoom calls. So you're right. The world has become a lot smaller place.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I appreciate. I think it's great. So I've taken it from, yelling on top of my mailbox on my cul-de-sac to I have this literal world at my fingertips where I can connect and communicate with people and share my stories and tell them things that I'm passionate about and hear things they're passionate about and exchange information and connect. It lights me up.
That's amazing. So I saw here that you're a mother of 3 and you've been doing this motherhood thing for some time now. So walk us a little bit through, how, I don't even know if that's the proper way to ask the question, but like, how does that feel? And then what program that you created out of that, what motivated you to build that up?
Yeah, well, I love that you asked me this today because I just spent the weekend actually celebrating my oldest 2 kids' birthdays. So nice. I've got 3 kids. My oldest just turned 14 yesterday. Nice. My daughter, who's my middle child, turned 12 2 days before that, and then my youngest is 8.5. His birthday's not till the fall. And being a mother is the best situation, the best journey that I have been on in my life, and it's one that you can't prepare for as much. And it's not just being a mother, but it's being a parent. I know you have 3 kids also, right? So the parenting journey, whatever role you play in that, it is a wild, wild ride. And it's amazing. I always knew I wanted to have kids probably since back in those days when I was sitting on top of the mailbox and knew I wanted to have kids. And when my husband and I got married, when I was almost 24 years old, so I was quite young, we knew we didn't want to have kids right away. But when we did get to that point where we said, I think we want to start going down this path, I remember clearly he said to me, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we do it, there's no returning. There's no going backwards.
There's no going back, yes.
There's no going back." And I knew, it was without a doubt, in my gut, in my core, I knew. But having kids, it's a wild ride, right? And it shifted everything. I had been in a corporate environment before, which the truth is I didn't love being in corporate. When my oldest was born, I decided to go to work part-time with my husband, mostly so that I could actually be more of a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And then, the challenge with that was that it wasn't super fulfilling to me on a personal level. Love my kids, love being a mom, love being with them, doing the things, but full-time stay-at-home mom wasn't really satisfying. Then I was kind of pigeonholed into this situation working with my husband in his business and helping him filling a gap in his business where he needed help that I could support him in sales and human resources. That wasn't serving my purposes either. And so I felt stuck though, because I loved the fact that I had this massively flexible schedule. And I loved the fact that when I was ready to, have another child, since I told you I have 3, I could take the time to take the time off. I could be with them when they were babies. I could, go on play dates and take them to the zoo and do the things. Like I didn't want to go back to some job where I was now forced to work, a more consistent 9 to 5 schedule.
Right.
That seemed awful. And so it was like deciding between my freedom and my flexibility, but also having to do this work with my husband that I didn't really love, even though I loved my husband, and sacrificing my own self-worth, self-value, connection to my purpose, and doing these things for my family. So it felt really conflicting. And eventually I got to this point where I got really, really discouraged, really frustrated, really angry, mostly with myself.
Yeah.
And mostly resentful because of choices I had made. And then I acted out, and it resulted in, me just going down a path of a lot of self-destruction, a lot of self-sabotage, aligning with people that didn't light me up, that weren't fulfilling, that weren't leading me down a positive path in life. A lot of physical abuse in terms of drinking, overeating, partying, not sleeping well. I mean, my adrenals were not in good condition.
Yeah.
And I was not living my best life. And I got to this point where it got pretty serious and I had to make a choice. It was like, do I continue down this path of self-destruction, or do I do something about it? And I really do feel that there was a divine intervention at this point where I made a choice and I was able to take the action steps required to get myself to where I am today, which I would say that now I am living my best life. And a lot of people don't have that within them, right? They need more support. They need more guidance. And I did, do a little bit of therapy, a little bit of coaching, but it was mostly self-leadership to get to that place. And I feel like it was self-leadership within, but also divinely guided. So I feel very, very, very grateful that I got to that place. And now, your audience might be like, well, who the heck is this woman? But what I do is I teach people how to manifest their best life. And I like to say how to teach them how to live their F-yes life. I don't know if we're allowed to curse here, but I can keep it clean if you want.
We'll keep it clean. Because who knows, maybe my kids or your kids might listen to this episode, in the future. So
absolutely. But we get the intention, right? It's like, I want, the people that I work with, and whether I work with somebody directly as a paid client or somebody just catches one of my videos on TikTok, I want them to know that they have the agency to wake up every single morning and say, this is my life. I am choosing this life. I'm choosing my perspective. I'm choosing how I'm showing up. I'm choosing how I stand in my purpose and in my integrity and in my authenticity. Yeah. And those are so valuable and not talked about nearly enough, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. Ourselves are so diminished because we have so many responsibilities. We're growing up watching TV of a certain type, and there's certain stereotypes that are set in motion, which is all well and good, and maybe there's an intention behind why they did that. It's because, hey, they want you to be a certain person, or they want you to be like fall into that concoction of a personality that they might think. So having an individualism thoughts, your own mentality, building that up, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. And I think a lot of that also comes from who we grew up around. Like, who are the people that we grew up with, or, what are the other influences? What are we learning from our parents, our siblings? And I don't know about you, but I'm the oldest of seven kids.
7, so, wow.
So we're like full house to the max. And it was totally different growing up and understanding. And then who do we let into our lives and our brain? Like, what are we letting that information do to us? And how do we then become the person that we want to be?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really liked what you said, living your F-yes life. Because, yes, we think we come up with all sorts of ideas and Now, I have not been diagnosed, but I think I have ADHD, but who knows?
Same.
Right?
Another similarity. I love it.
Right. So we're switching between one task to the other side, rather getting too bored, rather to getting too pigeonholed into one space. But then over time, since we're growing and since we're continually feel a little off, where is this conversation even going? But let's come back to you and, as this life that you created for yourself, putting yourself first, or after the children, of course, making sure that we are also meeting those responsibility. What are some of the things that you can help our audience resolve? Like, where does somebody even get started?
I love that question. And I know that a lot of the people here are really interested in, I love the title, right? Hacks and hobbies. I mean, we're all like, ooh, what's like the hack? What's the quick fix? What's the way that we can make something better in our lives?
Yeah.
And so if we're going to have like a life hack of, what's going to make my life better, number one thing that I would say is you have to choose to put yourself first. And I know that seems counterintuitive. And even you just said it, because so many of us do this, right? We're like, well, of course our children come first, but I'm going to argue the opposite. We have to come first. Right. Because if we put ourselves first, it's cliche, but the oxygen mask, right? The oxygen mask analogy.
Put your mask on first.
We got to come up with a different one because everyone's bored of that one. Like, pull it down, put it on your face, whatever. But here's the reality is like, if you don't put yourself first, if you don't say, I'm going to wake up every morning and do my very best to live my FES life, then you're not doing anyone a service in your life, whether it's your children, your partner, your business partner, your colleagues, your friends, your siblings, your parents, whomever. But let's talk about like the meat and potatoes. Like, how do you do that? So one of the things that I feel very, very passionately about is you have to start your day for you. And I don't know if you've had other guests on here talk about, morning rituals or morning routines. I'm sure you have, because it's a very like popular topic.
Yeah.
But it's worth talking about again and again and again, because I find even my clients will say, oh, I know. I should have a morning routine. I don't want to hear I should have anything. I don't want you to should. I want you to do, because it's aligned with who you are. So you have to really think about, how do I get into alignment with me first thing in the morning? And I think that's a better way to say it versus saying I should have a morning routine, because that's, BS. Nobody wants to follow these shoulds. At least I don't want to. And I presume that most people don't either. But remember, a morning ritual or a morning routine, it doesn't need to be a big production. It doesn't need to be a 2-hour situation. It needs to be, I'm choosing to be in alignment with myself for my first 5 minutes of the day. And a couple of really quick things that I do myself and that I teach to my clients is, before you open your eyes, so you're laying in your bed, maybe the alarm went off, maybe you woke up naturally, you're laying in your bed, your eyes are still closed, and you say to yourself, I am so grateful that I woke up today. I'm so grateful for this beautiful new day in front of me, and I am going to live my best life. I choose to live my FES life, and I choose to make this day the best day yet. And that took me, maybe 30 seconds? So there's one. There's one.
Yep.
And then you get up, and what do most people do first thing in the morning? They go to the bathroom, right? Because that's like our bodily human functions, how we operate. Gotta do the thing. So I got this from Mel Robbins, so I'm not taking credit, but she talks about something that I've been doing now since I heard it for the past 3 months or so, called the high five habit. Have you heard of this, Junaid?
I have not.
Okay, this is awesome. This is awesome. I hope you'll give it a try.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you say that little gratitude and that little prayer before you open your eyes. Then you sit up in bed, you get out of bed, you go to the bathroom, and in your bathroom, presumably you have a mirror. Is that true?
Yes.
Great. So look yourself in the mirror. As lovely as you look very first thing in the morning, I don't care if you've got sleep in your eyes, your hair's sticking up, you're like puffy, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You look at yourself in the mirror and you give yourself a high five in the mirror.
Because that's
give yourself
possible.
A high five.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason is, what is a high five signal to you, Junaid?
You did something good.
Yeah, right?
Something great. Awesome.
Right. Like if you high five somebody, you're like, good job, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well done. That is hardwired in our brains. Everybody knows that. Everybody feels that energy. But how often do you do that for yourself?
Not so much, yeah.
Not so much. So first thing in the morning, give yourself a high five in the mirror. High five, self. It's awesome. And then you can go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, get up, shower, whatever. I mean, those are 2 super quick things you can do in the morning that is done in like less than 5 minutes, probably 2 minutes to do those 2 things. Now, if you want to do more advanced morning rituals, meditation, journaling, exercise of some sort, music, whatever, cool. Do it. I love those things. I do them myself. But at the very least, do those things to empower yourself to choose that FES life first thing in the morning. I guarantee you that will change the trajectory of your entire day and change the trajectory of your life.
You know, you're absolutely 100% right, because when you choose, like that's the first thing you said. The first thing you got to do is you got to choose yourself. And if you've read the book, The Growth
Mindset?
Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich,
yeah,
Napoleon Hill. What's the first secret? Having the desire.
Yep.
Right? So choosing is very similar to having the desire to do anything at all. Yep. So when you choose yourself, you're also showing your children, like as parents, we're also showing our children, hey, choose yourself first before you go do something else. Make sure that your books are in order before you point at the people's mistakes.
Exactly.
Right? And you probably do this or have noticed you're talking to one of the kids and then the other kids is interfering.
Right.
Can you just...
What'd you say? Yeah.
Don't interfere while I am trying to parent
right?
my kid. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. You got to set ourselves up for success, because that's what we're doing, right? We're putting our mindset. And the other thing that also does that for that first point is that human beings, we have a lot of negativity around us. We absorb it so easily, because the more positive we are, guess what? The more negativity we're going to attract. It's a positive, negative.
Right.
So the more intentional we are, like you said, choosing to be positive, choosing to be grateful, the better our days will become and our lives. I love that. The high five habit. I like it. I'm going to put it down.
Yeah. I just kind of summed it up in that one exercise. I mean, Mel Robbins goes into more of the science around it. Of course, yeah. And it's fantastic and it's a quick read. But really, the essence is like, choose yourself, give yourself a high five, signal from the very beginning of the day. And, we tend to also overthink, right? This is, I think, a very common habit, strategy. It's human, and we tend to overthink, and we want, to figure out all the ins and outs and make things perfect. And, we get in our heads that like, we can't do this thing until we like really get it. You don't need to really get it. You need to just do it. We need to take more action. We need to be more aligned with who we are. And, one of the things I talk a lot about is core values. And so many people don't even know what that means. They don't even understand not only what core values are, but what their core values are, right? If you are making decisions and operating out of a place of unknowing who you are, what you're about, what you like, what your purpose is, then how are you operating in your life to choose yourself? So you have to go back to basics, and you have to give yourself permission to go back to those basics and to decondition so much of the external programming that we've all experienced from, right? I say that and everybody's like, oh God, external
programming. I don't know how to delete it.
Right. I mean, like, we think about our computers, right? Like, think how much programming is in there, right? And then if we have to delete something but we have a harder time doing that with ourselves.
Yes. It's harder to do for ourselves because we don't see it from that external angle. That's why we need coaches. That's why we need other people around us. That's why we need masterminds. That's why we need groups, so then people can help us become better versions of ourselves.
Although I would argue that we don't actually need any of those things.
We don't need anybody. Ooh.
No, I don't think that. Okay, so it's a little bit of there's a bit of a duality here. Okay, so we're humans. We do not exist in silos. We need the village, right? We need the support. We need the support system.
Yes, we do.
But our success in living our best life and being in alignment is not based on the support system. The support system is supporting our internal desire. So kind of going back to what you were saying about Napoleon Hill, right? Like, we have that desire within. So we have to kind of spark that flame within ourselves and then surround ourselves with the people that support that so we can keep the flame burning brighter and brighter and brighter.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. No, because you can't have a fire in a vacuum.
Yeah,
you need the oxygen. So the people around us are kind of like the oxygen that continues to help us burn our flame.
Right. And I may be like, I may be shooting myself in the foot here a little bit because I am a coach, but for the people that say, well, I can't do that without a coach and I don't have the money to afford the coach, it becomes this like train of excuses, right? So I just want to remind everybody that like, yes, hire the coach. Like I use a coach. I use lots of coaches. I have a support team that helps me in my business. I have, an amazing family that supports me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But none of those things will work if I don't start from within. So it has to start from within, and then you can hire the people or lean on the people externally that will support your desires and your growth even more.
A really practical example of what you're explaining here. So I don't know if you know, but I'm also a beekeeper.
Mm-hmm. I heard you talk about that. That's so cool.
Right. So how I became a beekeeper was initially I was told by our allergist that, hey, local honey is good for your kid for seasonal allergies. I'm like, all right, local honey. This was 10 years ago. I can't even believe it's been 10 years. And about 4 years ago, I was like, okay, now we have the space to do honey, to do bees. And I was watching, like, for 6 months, I'm just watching YouTube videos. I had the desire to, please get into that space. And then finally I watched the video and the guy's like, hey, if you really want to start becoming a beekeeper, you need to go join a local beekeepers group.
Okay.
Like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. So I go to a local beekeeper group. They're like, okay, this is what you need to do. You take a class. We teach you everything that need to know to become a beekeeper. You're gonna, find a space in your yard, buy equipment, assemble equipment, teach you all the biology about bees. I'm like, oh. So as you're saying, I had the desire. I was like, hey, I chose to be a beekeeper, but then I couldn't do it by myself.
Right.
I could go buy stuff online, but then it helped me to be more informed by being among other beekeepers.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, okay, look, I'm not an expert on bees. You can speak to this more. But even I'm just thinking about the social structure of bees. And you've got the queen who has the desire to run the hive, right? And then she's got all her drones and she's got all the
worker bees.
Right? All the worker bees, right? They're doing all the things. So she can't do it alone.
No.
But she has to be the one that's, standing in her power, so to speak, commanding the hive.
Yeah.
Right? So it's natural.
It is. It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And the cool part about a beehive, so the queen bee technically excretes this pheromone that keeps the hive together. But she's still dependent on the worker bees to feed her, to tell her, okay, now it's time to lay the eggs.
Right.
But the worker bees only last 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the queen bee lives for about 2 years.
Okay.
So it's ingrained to them that, this is the queen bee and we're basically supporting her.
Right.
So it's really like a really cool dynamic. It's ingrained in them and how they communicate. It's just beautiful. So as I'm learning about the hobby, as I'm learning about beekeeping, I'm trying to, draw lines in humanity, draw lines into community and how all of that comes together. It's beautiful.
I love that. That's super cool. And I bet your kids and your family appreciate all the honey that you guys get.
Oh, yes. We get a ton of honey, raw, it's delicious.
Royal jelly and all that good stuff.
Oh, yes. It's delicious. All right. Hallie, it's been so awesome talking with you. Thank you for sharing the practical application of how somebody can choose to be themselves and put themselves first and get started on that journey. Let's go into some fun questions as we come to the close. What is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
A hobby that I wish I got into. I would say that I don't have wishes that I don't pursue. Like if I want something, I go after it. That's my thing. So I would say right now, something that I'm interested in pursuing that I've been doing more of is learning about tarot and oracle cards. So that's been a really fun kind of complement to a lot of the work I do. And I just really enjoy it for myself. I find it to be really interesting.
Nice.
And, learning a little bit more of some of this deep kind of spiritual work. It's a lot of great tools for introspection. So I've been really enjoying that.
Very cool. What did you want to be when you were a child?
I remember when I was little, at some point I wanted to be a lawyer because my dad was a lawyer. That was it. And then I don't know. I mean, maybe I really just always wanted to be an entrepreneur with that book story. But I remember I would tell people that I wanted to be a lawyer, but that was because my dad was a lawyer and, wanted to follow in his footsteps. Of course, the irony is that he hated being a lawyer and he still practices law in a different way now in a more consultative capacity.
Sure.
But it's so funny because like the traditional lawyer kind of role, he did not like at all. So it's funny, but, wanted to be like my dad.
That's so cool because those are the people that are around us that inspire us to be like, hey, I love my dad. I want to be like him.
Right?
Like my kids were like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber or I want to be, somebody talking to the camera because that's what we see you do, Dad.
How cool is that? Everybody wants to be a YouTuber. That's awesome.
I know. What is your favorite movie or TV show? And if none, how about a book?
Yeah, I'm not a big TV show or movie person. I mean, my family did watch all the Star Wars, all the Marvel. I love the Disney and the Pixar films. I do enjoy all of those, but I don't know if I have like a particular favorite. I don't know if I have a particular favorite book either. There's so many that resonate with me that I love. I mean, I love reading. I would say the majority of my time I spend reading, journaling, scrolling TikTok, whether or not that's a good habit or not, but that's one I love too. I'm also a huge fan of Sex and the City. So if I have to pick a favorite, I'll go with Sex and the City because that's just one that I've seen every episode multiple times, and it's like my go-to. I just love those gals, and I love New York City. So
beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much. All right, this one is a fun question. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
If I got to, you know what? I am in the movie of my own life, and I am the queen. I am the star of my own life, Junaid. So that is my movie.
Absolutely, you are.
It is my movie. You maybe knew that answer was coming. I
love that answer. Yes, it's beautiful.
I can't play anyone else because I'm only me.
There's only one of you.
There's only one of me.
Be yourself because everybody else is taken.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Who is your favorite superhero or what is your superhero power?
Oh, that's a good one. I get to pick a superhero power. We did enjoy all the Marvel movies, and I would say that probably my favorites from there were, I did love Black Widow.
Yeah.
I thought she was pretty badass, and I also really loved Wanda from WandaVision.
Ooh.
But I think I'll tell you what my superpower is. My superpower is connecting with people and remembering really important things about them and then being able to connect the dots for them in a way that they weren't able to connect in themselves. So I know that's one of my superpowers, and I always love tapping into that magic.
Ooh, I love that. I like that a lot because that's literally magic because when you can see, and if you think about it, right, Sherlock Holmes did something very similar. He can tell exactly who you are just by looking at you.
Yep.
What's in your, like, oh man, I love watching the Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if you've seen any of the movies or the TV show.
Only a little bit. I haven't seen a ton of Sherlock Holmes, but
okay.
Yeah.
So there's a series with Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes, and then there's also, of course, the 2 movies with Robert Downey Jr. Playing Sherlock Holmes. So really,
I'll put those on my watch list.
Yes, please. I'll come back and ask you.
Okay, perfect.
Haley, have you seen it yet?
Okay, perfect.
All right. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Oh, if I was a board game. I love board games. That's a good one. I don't know you know what? I think if I was going to be a board game, I would be Othello. Do you know Othello?
I do know Othello, yeah.
Because you have to use a strategy to make the right move so that you can end up being the most abundant in your pieces.
Ooh, I like that. Awesome. Well, Hallie, this was so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much. Where can my audience find you?
Yes, I would love to have them connect with me. If they want to go to my new website, sassyhealthy.fit, and if they go to free-resources, there's 2 free resources there. They can grab either journal prompts or my ultimate manifestation guide, and I would love to connect with them further. You can also find me on all the socials, but go to my website and it'll take you there. So it's sassyhealthy.fit/free-resources.
Fantastic. We'll be sure to attach the link in the show notes so that people can get directly to you. And awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Hallie. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.